guys, it's Sabrina here. So I wanted to make this video because I feel like this is something that I wanted to talk about, need to talk about, and you never know who else is dealing with the same problem. So long story short, I lost my mom last year due to cancer, and more specifically colon cancer. So when was she diagnosed? In November of 2020, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And honestly, we were shocked, me and her, because it's been me and her for like the past couple of years. And my mom is fairly healthy. She didn't have high cholesterol, diabetes, no nothing. All she took was literally like vitamins at home. So prior to being diagnosed, that January of 2020, she had an appendectomy done. And for some reason, they didn't see anything on her CT scan there. But yet, November of that same year, that's when they found the cancer. Due to her finally getting a colonoscopy, because 2020 is when COVID was hitting pretty bad. So a lot of elective surgeries, which a colonoscopy is considered elective because it's not like life-saving or anything. So it got pushed back months and months, and then she was finally able to do it. So at first, my mom honestly did not want to do chemo. She's always been one of those people that said that she wouldn't want to do chemo because she watched her sister, my aunt, go through chemo for breast cancer, and it's pretty brutal. So she ended up going to this place. It was like in, where was it? Not Michigan, Missouri, in December. It's supposed to be like a natural place where you do like natural treatments. Honestly, a lot of that stuff I don't believe in. It works for certain stuff, but for cancer and like certain diseases that are really not curable, I honestly did not believe it. But she wanted to believe in it, so I was like, whatever. And my mom was a nurse. She was a hospice nurse. So the day that she found out, she called her job the next day and said, I'm not coming back to work, because all she had was basically dying cancer patients or like dementia patients, but most of her patients were dying. So that's pretty hard to do when you have stage 4 cancer. So she stopped working, and she had scans again that January, and her cancer was spreading even more. So when she was first diagnosed, it was just in her lungs, and I don't think she had any in her liver. But in January, fast forward to January, when she got a scan done, she had 2 nodules in her liver. And the doctor was like, if you do not do chemo, like, you're literally going to die from this cancer, because she just had an aggressive form of it. So she finally started chemotherapy. She did about 6 months of chemotherapy, and it was brutal. So she was on the, I can't remember it, 5FU or FOFOX, something like that. Basically, she would go to chemo, get chemo every 2 weeks. When she would go, she would get 1 chemo there. She'd get Benadryl. She got some other stuff too, like a medication that would kind of like keep the cancer within the area, something like that. I don't know anything about chemo meds. I'm a nurse, but I don't do like oncology. So, and then she'd go home with chemo in this little IV pump, and it would literally run at 1 ml an hour. That's super slow. So she would go on Mondays. If she went on a Monday, she'd return it on Wednesday. If she went on a Tuesday, she returned it on a Thursday. So she did that, and her symptoms, she didn't get nauseous, she didn't lose her hair, she lost a lot of weight. My mom was normally around like 160, and she was about like 120, 115 during chemo. And she got something called like hand and foot syndrome, where her feet were super sensitive, and it was only when she got chemo. So she'd get chemo, and by the time like 2-3 days later, it'd be gone. So I think she finished chemo in September. And that whole year she didn't work. It was just mainly me. And like a lot of nurses were traveling. I didn't have enough experience to travel yet, but once it hit August, mom was like, you should travel, like it would really help us with money. And honestly, I'm down for doing that, honestly, because we bought a house in 2020, so we had a house and stuff, so I didn't mind. I was paying the mortgage by myself the whole year. I really didn't have a lot of expenses. So I took my first contract in October, and I didn't go too far. I only went 3 hours away from home, and that's when my mom started getting sicker. And she kind of didn't tell me anything. I figured something was wrong, but she was getting, basically, if you know anything about the liver, you get something called ascites, like it's a buildup of fluid that you get, so their bellies would get pretty big. And I noticed that, and she would get paracentesis done, and it was like maybe once every 3 weeks. and then it started getting more frequent. And one thing, since she started chemo, she became tachycardic, so her heart rate would like sit at like 115, and she could feel it, and it bothered her a lot. So they put her on metoprolol, and she would take metoprolol I think morning and night, and it seemed to help a bit. But while I was there, like, she was getting sicker, and I was like I'm gonna cancel my contract. And it's pretty bad to cancel a contract. Like, the company can like blacklist you, the hospital can blacklist you, the hospital system and all that. She's like, no, she's like, you need to save money, blah. All she did was, like, the whole time she was sick, all she cared about was me. And like, she knew she was going to die. My mom is a nurse, like, she knows chemo eventually stops working. So she was like, no, like, you need money, blah blah, I'm not gonna be here. And honestly, I did not want to hear that. Like, that's the last thing you want to hear. So what I ended up doing is I ended up talking to the manager. I was like, hey, like, can you give me a schedule where I work, like, 3 days in a row, and then I can be able to go home? Because the way my schedule was, I could not go home at all. Like, I'd have 1 or 2 days off. So I ended up working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'd go drive to Orlando Thursday morning when I would get off. My boyfriend would drive me. And then I'd go back again on Monday. So I'd go straight home. And it got to the point my mom was always in the hospital. She was getting paracentesis done and stuff, or it was her heart rate that was just too high. And something my mom told me that literally, like, made me want to cry. She was like, oh, like, when I die, like, can you use your money? If I don't have enough money, can you use your money to pay for my funeral? And I'm like, what am I gonna do, put you in a box? Like, I'm literally your only child. So, like, I was literally boohoo crying when she told me that, and I feel myself tearing up now. And I had a lot of money saved up, so, like, she knew I had money saved up. I was responsible. My mom told me, like, try to live in my means, and she had money too. So I'm like, why is she saying this? So I think it was in December when she really got sick. So she decided to put herself on hospice. She's like, I want to be on hospice. They kept trying to make her do chemo. She's like, what is the point to live an extra month and have all these side effects? So she just wanted to be on hospice. She wanted to be made comfortable. So all she just wanted was pain medication, because she was having a lot of back pain. And she ended up getting a small bowel obstruction. It wasn't like severe where they had to put an NG tube or anything, but it just went downhill from there. And the last time that let me see, what date was it? So she passed away December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve. Let me see, I have to look at my calendar. So yeah, so the 23rd. So the last day that I really, like, she was fully with it was on December 20th. I had to go to work that day. So what I would do is every morning, like, because I guess they weren't allowing me to sleep at the hospital at that point. So every morning I would drive to the hospital, because I only lived like 10 minutes away. I'd drive to the hospital, help her shower, make sure she had breakfast. So that morning I did all of that and helped her shower. She's like, oh, you have to get to work because it's a 3-hour drive. And I was like, no, like, it's fine, blah blah. If I'm late, oh well. Like, if I have to literally put on my scrubs and get dropped off at the hospital straight from here, that's fine with me. So, like, I talked to her, I hugged her goodbye. And at that time, my mom really wasn't answering her phone because so many people were calling her. She was just so tired of people calling her. So she'd only, like, answer her phone to select people sometimes that she would check it. But that night, like, usually when I go to work, I call her in the, like, before she goes to sleep, she'd call me. And then in the morning when I get off, I'd call her because she always woke up early. So that night I called her phone. She didn't answer. I was surprised because she hadn't been answering. And then I called her again. She didn't answer. So in the morning, when did I get off? Yeah. So I worked Tuesday. Nothing happened. So Tuesday, I hadn't heard from her the whole day. And then on the 22nd, when I got off of work, I got a call from the hospital. And it was actually the doctor. He was like, oh, your mom, had a, she kind of, like, went downhill overnight, basically. And I was, like, boohoo crying driving home. Like, it got to the point where I kind of, like, was starting to swerve because my eyes were so blurry from crying. And I was like, like, let me just, calm myself. So I got off the highway, pulled over, and I was like, okay, Sabrina, you gotta calm down, you gotta drive. So I was staying at my boyfriend's house, and it was like about a 45-minute drive from the hospital to his house because of traffic. So I got to his house, and I didn't really, like, I tried to hide that I was crying, but it was kind of obvious because my eyes are super red. So I told him, like, can you please drive me to Orlando? So I didn't sleep the whole ride because I was so stressed out. So I got to Orlando, and my mom wasn't even, like, you can tell, like, it was coming to an end. So and apparently like she wasn't really responsive to anybody, but she was talking to me surprisingly. So I told her that I loved her, and she told me she loved me back. But you can tell I was coming to, like, I don't know if you ever had like a hospice patient, they get all gurgly, like they get a lot of secretions and stuff, they stop eating. And she did have a Foley, so I'm glad like she didn't have to deal with being incontinent or anything. But the hospital, the unit was like, oh, you know, like if you want to sleep over, like under this circumstances, like you can sleep over. And I was like, okay, thank you. And the crazy thing is, the nurse that took care of my mom, I went to nursing school with her, and she took really good care of my mom. And I was so grateful that she was my mom's nurse that day. And I slept over that night, and honestly, I didn't even sleep. Like between that whole month of December, my sleep was like little to none. When I would go back home, I would barely be sleeping. I'd be up all night because I was sleeping on my mom's, like if she was home, I'd be sleeping in her room on the floor. But Thursday night, I ended up sleeping there, and then I woke up. It was like around 6 o'clock, and I just knew it was that was just the end. And I don't know if it was just shock, but I honestly, I couldn't even cry because I had been crying like the whole month of December. So I hugged her, and I kind of kicked everybody out of the room because I wanted to be alone. And I don't know, I just felt like I just couldn't believe that was happening. Like, one, I'm an only child, and it's just hard losing your one, like I still have my dad, but it's not the same. I've always lived with my mom my whole life, mainly after my parents got divorced. So I just couldn't believe that was happening. But I think I was just in shock because I honestly couldn't cry. Like, I went home, and the first thing I did when I got home, I called the medical supply company. I was like, can you please get rid of all this stuff? Because we had a hospital bed, commode area. I was like, please get rid of it, because I just didn't want that in my house. It was just making me feel like crap. So they literally came within like 2 hours, and they took everything away. But I don't know, it was just really hard. The funeral, like when, I don't know, between, because the funeral happened 2 weeks after she died, because you know, the holidays, Christmas, New Year's. So the funeral was January 7th, and I don't know, the viewing was the day before, so the viewing was January 6th. And normally, you know, you have a funeral on a weekend, but my birthday is January 9th. I was not going to bury my mom on my birthday, so I was like, I'm having this funeral Friday. If you can come. If you can't, oh well, because I'm the one paying for the funeral. So, but on January 6th, when we had the viewing, I was by myself. Well, my family was there, but I went inside by myself first. And I was walking into, like, they have like this little chapel for the viewing. Like, you have the private viewing first. And I literally just broke down crying because I was like, oh my goodness, my mom is in a casket. Like, I think that's when reality kind of set in, and I just could not stop crying. Like, I was profusely crying. Like, I think I kind of ran out of tears because it got to the point where nothing was coming out anymore. But I went home after the viewing, and then the funeral, same thing. I don't know. But as sad as I feel, I'm happy that my mom is not suffering anymore, because if you've ever had somebody with cancer, cancer is a freaking beast. Like, I think it is the worst disease you can have. Like, once it just starts spreading, it's just, you don't know what symptoms you'll get. The worst symptom I feel like is pain. But mom was miserable. She always told me she didn't want to be miserable. She made herself DNR before she even went into hospice. Like, she's like, I don't want a peg tube, I don't want a colostomy, I don't want nothing, I don't want to be intubated. And I don't blame her, because what's your quality of life going to be if any of that happens to you? So fast forward to now, we're in March. It was her birthday last week, and it was pretty hard. Like, I woke up literally crying, and I was just like, ugh. And I looked at all these videos of when, like, her birthday was, her 50th birthday. I recorded it. I got her a cake and everything. I was pretty sad that whole day. And my aunt texted me. She's like, I know it's a sad day. Like, you know, you're going to be okay. And I know I'm going to be okay. Like, now I have a lot of responsibilities because we bought our house together. So everything is on me now. Paying the water bill. But thankfully, I'm traveling. So I make enough to be able to pay the rent here where I am in Charlotte and the rent back home in Orlando. But I do miss my mom. Like even when I started my contract, the first thing I wanted to do was, like, you know, call her and tell her, oh, you know, this is how my first day of my assignment went. And I'm like, damn, I can't really call, like, I can't call my dad. Like, he wouldn't understand. He's not a nurse, so he can't really relate with me. So it's hard. And I am gonna miss her, and I don't know. And it just sucks that My mom will not see me have any kids. Like, she won't be at my wedding. Honestly, I don't even want a wedding anymore. Like, it's that bad. I'm like, what's the point? Like, the most important person in my life is gone. So I don't know. So if you are somebody who has lost a parent or somebody last year, like, you know how this feels. Things will get better, of course. I have to say that because it's true. You will move on with life. You'll feel guilty, because I do feel guilty moving on with life. But I will always remember all the advice my mom told me, you know, being responsible, respecting myself. My mom was super religious and strict, so getting used to living by myself, because I had never lived by myself. I always lived with my mom. So, but all to say is that, you know, if you're someone who doesn't get checkups, I highly recommend you get checkups. And I know a lot of like Caribbean people, specifically Haitians, they do not like going to the hospital. I'm telling you, get your mammograms like you're supposed to. Get your colonoscopy. I believe they changed the age to like 45. Please get a colonoscopy. Yes, it's not nice having a tube going up your butt, but it can save your life. So make sure you get that done. Make sure you're getting checkups. Like, you don't want to go to the hospital one day and they tell you, oh, you're diabetic, you have hypertension, you have all this stuff, because you didn't go to the doctors to get checkups. Like, make sure you're getting checkups like you're supposed to annually and everything. So don't be one of those people. And I don't know, life moves on, but of course, you know, you're gonna miss your parent or your loved one. But if you did lose anyone, you know, let me know in the comments, you know, how you're dealing with grief, if you've gone to therapy, if you're talking to someone, how it's changed your life, either for the good or for the worse. But thank you for watching this video. I honestly just wanted to get this off my chest. And if you watched the whole thing, thank you. Again, my name is Sabrina Laporte. I'm a nurse. I'm an entrepreneur, a whole bunch of stuff. But thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment, of course, and I'll see you guys in another video.